about myself and share my story. So I'm the little guy over there in the corner. I'm 2.5 years old in this picture. That's my dad. We're at my grandfather's house, and this is when I first started learning how to play poker. I was not a poker prodigy by any stretch of the imagination. I liked the game, but I was actually more of a chess player growing up, as you kind of heard a little bit earlier. My dad traveled around the country playing in chess tournaments, and I would play with him. So whenever you are around somebody who is really good at something, they're going to raise up your level of play too, and that's what happened with me. So a couple more modern pictures of me playing poker a few years later. This is me at a couple different tournaments. This is me playing golf I think this was in Bermuda. And this is my wife and I at Lago de Fogo in Portugal, the Azores Islands. It means Lago de Fogo is fire lake. It was a volcano, and now it's this beautiful bottle of water that is incredible. So when I'm out traveling with my wife, I'm in the radio studio. This was actually taken last Saturday. And you can see me pointing to my head because I was talking about the things that you put in your head and your mind, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. And I was joined by Glenn Garnes and William Murray as well. I also do some speaking, like you see in this picture, or as I am right here. And I also did some poker tournaments and trainings and all sorts of different things. This was an event I did back in December, actually right where you're sitting right now. So although it looks like everything was all hunky-dory, things were not always so easy for me. And even though it looks like maybe it doesn't, maybe it does, I have things all figured out. I'm still learning and growing, and that's why I love this community. I love the Village and also Millionaire Mastermind for the idea of sharing different concepts and working together. But back when I was in 3rd to 8th grade, things were tough. One of the things, again, I won that chess tournament. That was something I was not like, oh, good job, Josh. That's a real big accomplishment. That's something you kind of get teased about in school when you have a chess trophy as part of the chess club. And not only was it something that I was proud of, it was actually something I was embarrassed of. So I had this accomplishment, and it got so bad, you'll never believe what I did, but I actually destroyed my own trophy. I was getting so much ridicule at school for it that my friend at the time was like, the best way to show that you don't really care about this is to destroy it. So as an 11-year-old, that sounded like a pretty good idea. Chess was not the only thing I was, picked on about. I was, teased for my religion. People would make anti-Semitic comments. People would pick on my weight, and things weren't. It wasn't always just verbal. A lot of times it was physical. Anyone know what the term "getting jumped" means? Anyone know that? I would get off the school bus, and a group of kids that were bigger than me. Actually, some were smaller than me, but it doesn't matter. When there's a bunch of them and only one of you, doesn't really matter, so that was what it was. So, things, it was definitely a difficult time for me. But then one day, I started thinking, and I became a little bit hopeful. And I kind of realized, you know what? I can't change the way people talk to me or what they do to me. I can only change the way I think about this situation, how I feel about this situation, and how I respond to the situation. So I made a decision, and that decision was, I'm going to join the high school football team. Now, that might not seem like a big deal, but it's a very significant part of my life, because I went through this very difficult time from 3rd to 8th grade, and as I was moving in to be a 9th grader going to high school, I was like, okay, well, this is an opportunity for me to get bigger, for me to get stronger, build some confidence, be able to talk to some girls maybe. I mean, no, definitely, I remember that. But, that was the purpose. And, so I was like, and also be part of something. So I joined the football team. Well, it was a good idea, though it wasn't exactly met with the easiest of approaches. So any football fans in the room at all? A little bit? Anyone know what the combine is? Have you heard of the combine? Okay, so this is when students come out of college and they're trying to go into the NFL. they get tested in these different things, 40-yard dash, how high they can jump, and one of which is the bench press. And because of time, I'll kind of tell the story quickly. But basically, they, as an incoming freshman, they wanted to see how many times you could bench press 135 pounds. So if anyone's ever been to the gym, there's that big Olympic-sized bar. It's 45 pounds, and you got the big plates, which are 45 pounds, one on each side. So I remember going up, and it's like right in the middle of the room, and everybody's standing around, and the coaches are these huge guys, one of which he played defensive line for like Wake Forest. It was one of the biggest people I've ever seen in my entire life. So I come up to him like, guys, I've never bench pressed before. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. So they kind of like grumble and talk to themselves, and they took some weight off the bar and put on 25. So we're talking 95 pounds. So I get on the bench, and I'm like, all right, my hand's right, or this, okay? I pull it down to my chest, and I can't lift the damn thing one time. And so like, okay, so that was a humbling experience. So needless to say, I was not a starter. I was very much on the sidelines. I was just, I was still getting stronger. I was working out every day. So there were some side benefits to being there, but I wasn't really on the field. So I set a goal, and that's really what I wanted to get to. I set a goal. My goal was to become a starter on the football team. Now, that seems probably like a pretty big goal for a guy that came on and can't bench press 95 pounds. Oh, meanwhile, I remember showing up in my first 2 days practice with an inhaler because I had asthma growing up. I had allergies growing up. And one day I'm like, you know what? I don't have asthma anymore. I just chucked it away. I just made a decision. I'm like, no, this is going to hold me back. So I just like gave up on asthma. I didn't believe it. So I set this goal. And for a couple years, I really just kind of got a little bit better, a little bit stronger. And then between my freshman and sophomore year, my family moved, so I went to a different high school. And then between my junior year and senior year summer, something kind of challenging but awesome happened at the same time. I became a mason tender. And everyone knows what a mason is. They're the people that like build foundations, bricks and cement and cinder blocks, and that's what I did for an entire summer, like up at 5 a.m., back-breaking labor, day in, day out. Has anyone ever mixed cement or mortar by hand in a wheelbarrow? Okay, you know what I'm talking about, right? That is some back-breaking work. And I remember driving home one day, and I'm like, damn, I got triceps. Like, where did those things come from? Ultimately what happened was I remember I went back to my, the first day of football after a long, hard summer of doing this work, and my coaches gave me the best compliment ever. And they asked me, have you been doing steroids? And I was like, no, I was a mason tender, and told them about this experience. And so that's me, number 55 here. Again, I remember I set this goal of becoming a starter. That's me coming off the field. This is me engaged in a pretty good block here. You can see the guy running by, so I'm right there doing my thing. Then over here, another pretty solid little block, springing the guy free. And then over here, piling on. So I played offense and defense both ways. I was a left guard, then got moved to right tackle, played all across the defensive line as well. So that was a pretty big experience for me growing up. And again, I think setting goals was a very important aspect. So what I'm going to share with you is 3 things, okay? So these are my ACE behind goal setting. So a lot of people talk about SMART goals. I'm going to tell you about how to ACE your goals. So the first word is ambition, okay? Don't be afraid to be ambitious about your goals. Hard work never stops, neither should your dreams. And SMART goals, we talk about setting things that are realistic. I think set big, hairy, audacious goals because that's what gets you moving forward. Had I said I want to become a starter on the football team when I couldn't even bench press 100 pounds once, that would have been pretty ridiculous to think that would ever happen. But through hard work and ambition, I ended up getting there. The second thing, the C, is clarity. You got to be very clear about what you want. Once you have a clear picture of your priorities, that is values, goals, and high leverage activities, organize around them. So figure it out what it is you want, and then put the plan to work around that. And then the E, you have to have an end date. A goal is a dream with a deadline. Okay? You have to say, okay, if I had said, I'm going to be a starter on the football team, that might not have been enough. Before I graduate, it's an important aspect of it, right? It has to have a specific timeline to work towards, okay? Now, although setting goals is important, one of the things about goals, you can't be too focused on them. In other words, focus on the process, not just the results. This is a big poker idea as well. Sometimes you can make the right decision and still lose. That's part of the game. That happens in business. Maybe you do everything you can to get a certain bid or a proposal and it doesn't work out. Well, that's okay. It's not going to work out every single time. You know, in poker, you might go all in as a 70% favorite. Well, that still means 3 out of 10 times you may lose. You're going to lose because of the rule of large numbers. So focus on the journey, not the destination. Joy is found in doing the activity, but not in finishing the activity, but in doing it. So now, speaking of the decision-making process, another acronym for you. This is how to ace your decision-making process. The A is assess. So first, you need to assess the situation. You need to put the facts all out on the table. Be very realistic about where you are. So as you set your goals, you know what it is where you are, so you know what to do in order to figure out where you need to go. Once you assess the situation, you need to calculate. Now, this is the idea of calculating, especially from a poker perspective. That's something in my workshops and programs. I get a lot more in detail. I'll even show a poker hand example as you break down the probability, the risk, the reward of the situation, though we don't have a ton of time to go into that today, but that is an important step. Though the things to take away when you're thinking about this, when you are setting goals or making any decision, calculate. What is the worst case scenario? How likely is that to work out? What do I have to risk? And maybe it's not necessarily time or money or ego, but what do I have to gain on the other side? So consider the risk, but also think about what it is you could have also. So the E is execute. So you assess the situation, you make your calculations, and then you make a decision. Don't get stuck in paralysis by analysis, right? There's your poker and life, it's a game of limited information. You know what you know when you know it, and you make the best possible decision with the information you have. And then as you learn, you can make adjustments, which is okay. And that's why this is a process. So you'll assess the situation, you'll calculate, you'll execute, and then you'll reassess. And this can go on and on. So, again, I think a little short in time, so I can't go too much into this, but does anyone know what that's a picture of? Anyone know that picture? So this is actually a silver star. So this was my grandfather's, and he did some pretty brave stuff in the war. There's an article on my website, but essentially he was a combat medic, and he was nominated 9 times for a Silver Star, where he finally won it for pulling out 2 wounded guys under heavy artillery fire as an 18-year-old kid. So to put things in perspective in terms of fear and risk, when I was going through my bullying experience, this really helped me through because it put what I was going through in perspective. Yeah, maybe I was getting beat up. Yeah, maybe I was getting teased, but I was not on the battlefield. So it actually put my problems in perspective. So if you think about it that way, think, whatever it is you're facing, we all have, challenges, there's always someone that has something that's even greater. So despite that, move forward anyways. So embrace taking calculated risks. This is actually from a great poker movie, even if you're not a poker person. The movie Rounders, fantastic flick. Matt Damon, Edward Norton, John Turturro, John Malkovich. It's a great flick. You can't lose what you don't put in the middle, but you can't win much either. So sometimes you're going to have to do things that make you feel outside your comfort zone, because that is really where the magic happens. Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. Again, you're going to make decisions. Sometimes you're going to be wrong. Sometimes it's going to work out. Either way, you have to keep on plugging on. It's the persistence that really gets you to success. The most successful people in the world didn't get there overnight. It was through trial and error. It was through learning and adjusting and continuing to get up even when they fell down.